Unlike the Tories, the NDP say they'll take a let's see approach to the new Liberal government. Joining us now to discuss her next moves and what her party wants to see in the budget, here's Andrea Horwath, Ontario NDP leader and the member for Hamilton Centre. We welcome you back to TVO.
My pleasure.
Okay, let's start by playing a clip of the interview that I did with Kathleen Wynne. She was in that chair last week, and then we'll come out of that with a question, okay?
Okay.
Roll tape, please. This legislature was elected 16 months ago. Do you have a view as to how long it should last?
Well, I'm thinking October 2014 would be a good date.
Would
How
you
about
like to
October
see it,
2015?
Would you like to see it all the way through to the end, if possible?
I'd like to see it through to the end. I would. I think that would be terrific, and I think it would be a testament to the members' abilities to work together. And so I've got my sights set on the next 2 years, 3 years, you know, to try to make it work. And I'm going to do everything in my power to do that, Steve. That's why the throne speech was crafted the way it was. That's why I spent time meeting with the members of the opposition, listening to people from across the floor, trying to find that common ground, and then putting those notions in the throne speech. And I'm going to do the same going into the budget.
This is a new premier who believes she is reaching out effectively to you. Is she?
Well, I guess we'll see with the budget. I've said that I saw a few things I thought were interesting in terms of the throne speech and what was in there, but the rubber hits the road in the budget process, and what we're interested in is not so much about the conversation, but about the action, and the action is what happens in the budget process.
She uses that word a lot these days, right? Conversation?
Lots of conversation.
You're teasing her about it in the House the other day, I saw.
Well, you know, it's not so much teasing. I think it's really a warning to the government. I mean, you call it a new government. Really, it's the same government with a new leader. And what the people of Ontario have experienced is that they've been on the back burner while this Liberal Party's gotten its act together. What we need to see now is some real action on some of the ongoing problems people are facing.
More on that in a second. Just to clarify, though, when they have the vote on the throne speech, you will vote for the throne speech?
Yes, I've given my word on that. We think that the legislature was shut down for 5 months. We were committed to getting back into the legislature and trying to get results for people, and so that's what we're committed to doing. We can only do that if we get into a budget process where we can get those results, and that's what we're looking for.
Tim Hudak, as you know, has decided that he believes this government is so egregious, scandal-plagued, use whatever words you want, that he feels they're not entitled to govern another day. You obviously do. How come?
Sure. Well, because I believe it shouldn't be about, you know, the partisan points necessarily. We both have to do our jobs as opposition parties to hold the government to account. That's a fundamental part of our job. But the other half of our job, I believe, particularly in a minority parliament, is to actually try to get some things done for people. Mr. Hudak took the same approach at the last budget, and the last process was he walked away from it without really even looking at it. We did the opposite. We rolled up our sleeves and tried to achieve things for the people of the province, and I think we were able to make that budget better in the process. So I'm taking as you said, a wait-and-see approach. I've put out some pretty, you know, basic, I think, pretty achievable markers that I think the government can deliver on in the budget, and I'm asking them to deliver.
I actually am going to get to those eventually, but I still got to talk a little politics with you here. Taking the position you have taken ultimately means that the survival of this House is in your hands. Does that put you in a difficult position?
I think the survival of the legislature is in the government's hands. They have an obligation to start delivering for people.
But you get to decide. You get to decide whether or not they sink or swim.
We've given them some pretty achievable things that they can get done, and we've said to them we expect to see them in the budget. Now it's their decision as to whether they're going to get into a little more action or stay on the talking side of things.
Okay, let's talk about some of those issues then that you want to push for. You want a public inquiry into the gas plant fiasco in Oakville and Mississauga. What would be the value in doing that?
Well, it's an independent approach that takes the rancor of this whole issue out of the legislature and into a separate forum. I mean, already question period and now committees are going to be kind of seized with all of this discussion. The people of Ontario deserve answers. That's the bottom line. And a scoped, affordable public inquiry will get people those answers and still give us room to achieve other important goals for them in the legislature.
Scoped means what?
Means a time scope so that we don't have this rambling long process that lasts years and years and costs millions and millions. Something that we think can be achieved in about 6 months. We don't think it needs to travel around the province. It's something that can be done here in Toronto, calling witnesses from this general area. It doesn't need to be very, very onerous. I mean, let's face it, apparently most of the documents are out. I mean, who knows if there are still some stragglers that haven't been released. But the most important thing is, I think, who is the ringleader in terms of making this decision to move those gas plants in the first place, and then importantly, who was it that decided and who was involved in this decision to cover up the information and prevent it from coming forward?
Okay, well, on the first one, we know that already. We know the former Premier, Dalton McGuinty, and his campaign director had a meeting in the middle of the election campaign in 2011 and decided we better pull the plug on this thing if we want to save Liberal seats in the West End of Toronto.
Well, again, we'd like to get the specifics around that. I mean, we've asked many times for documents to be released from the Premier's office. We're not getting them. We've seen no documents at all from the Liberal campaign team. So it's easy to make conjectures, but everybody in the Liberal team has denied that they knew anything about this from day one. I don't believe that that's true. I don't think the people of this province believe that that's true, and they need to have those questions answered.
6 months, right? So we're February now, March, April, May, June, July, August. So you want a public inquiry to report in August, which is potentially either at the beginning of or maybe in the middle of a fall election campaign?
Well, 6 months from the time it's called. And again, they haven't agreed to call one. Had they agreed to call one a couple of weeks ago, we might have been at the beginning of August. I mean, this is the problem. And again, I think that, it'll take a while to find the person who would head up the inquiry. So, I mean, the timing of it, it's not so much the timing of it in terms of when it will complete its work, but rather scoping the timing of it so that it doesn't last for years and years and years.
I don't know how you can do that, and only because you got to follow the money, you got to follow the evidence, you got to follow where it takes you. And what if you uncover a big trove of something important in August? You can't just shut it down.
That's one of the other things that we wanted to see is at a halfway point, or at the 3-month mark anyways, assuming that it would go 6. At the 3-month mark, regardless, having a report back to determine, where things were at that stage in the game.
Do you, boy, I have to watch how I ask this, but do you think she's going to be dumb enough to actually go along with this idea of yours?
Well, I don't think it's a dumb idea, with all due respect.
No, but it would be for her to do it, wouldn't it?
Well, but I mean, if you look what's happening right now, it's already not such a positive place in the legislature. I would have hoped that we would have been smart about that and taken it out of the legislature. I think it's actually the smart thing to do if your goal is to actually achieve things for people, because it opens up the space in the legislature to make that happen.
Well, okay, I take your point, but one of the arguments about why people send members of the legislature to the legislature is to do their jobs. And one of their jobs is oversight on government spending. Why can't the MPPs who've been elected to do this job do this job?
Well, because we tried to do it and the government refused to cooperate with us. I mean, we're in this, let's not forget, we're in this imbroglio in the first place because cabinet ministers refused to give the information. We were FOIing, we were filing Freedom of Information requests on this since 2011, since before that, to try to get a sense of what was happening, and they refused to release the information. So let's be clear, we tried to go through the proper process, both through FOI and then through committee. At every stage, the governing Liberals refused to give us the information that they should have been releasing. And so it's proven not to work so far. And so all I'm saying is let's get it into a process that is unbiased, that is third party, where we can actually have the attention put to it in a different forum.
That was the previous Premier who prorogued. He was so anxious that no information get out, he prorogued. This is a new Premier who said, not only can you have all the information that you want, but I'll show up to the committee.
Well, it's interesting because they've been saying also for the last couple of, well, since she was elected as the leader, she was saying that all the documents were out. The cabinet ministers were saying all the documents were out. And then just a couple of days ago, lo and behold, we found out that actually in November, they were likely told by a deputy minister that, in fact, there was likely to be more documents released. And so even the new premier has not been overly open about the fact that there were likely going to be documents released. And so, you know, you can't have it both ways. You can't pretend that you're going to do things differently and then go ahead and start doing things the same old way and not be called on it. I mean, that's
okay. Does your political instinct tell you that she, as the co-chair of the last Liberal election campaign in 2011, knows more about this than she's letting on?
Well, I mean, and that's one of the questions that I think needs to be answered, Steve. I mean, I wouldn't want to, you know, call her a name, and I think that's kind of not the right thing to do at this point. But I think there are things she needs to answer to, and I don't know what their process is. I don't know how involved their co-chairs of campaigns are in the day-to-day decision-making when it comes to these kinds of things. I have no idea. But certainly those are questions that need to be answered.
Okay. Budget. What do you want to see?
Well, I've been pretty clear. We've been talking a long time about the fact that people are finding it difficult to make ends meet. One of the big areas that we require people to buy product in is insurance. They have to buy insurance to drive in Ontario, so we want to see a reduction in rates. There have been policy changes in the auto insurance regime in the last couple of years, which has created a great windfall of extra profits for the companies. And, you know, they're private companies, so profits are part of their business. I get that. But let's face it, we have the lowest accident rates in the country and the highest premiums. We have people who have stopped actually buying insurance and are risking operating their cars without insurance. We have people that don't, they don't call their claims in, like they don't register their claims because they don't want to end up seeing their premiums going up. This is a system that's not working.
You want
people
a 15% cut?
That's what we've said.
Okay,
yeah.
If the industry came back to you and said, fine, you want a 15% cut in premiums, we'll give it to you. We'll have to have a corresponding 50% lower payout if you get into an accident. Would that be okay?
Well, they've already done that, though. I mean, they've already received the benefit of public policy changes that have allowed them to reduce benefits but continue to keep the rates high. So it's been unfair. Public policy should be about making things, you know, better, not just for the private companies, but actually for the people that are required to buy the product. And so I would say, no, that's not on for me. It's pretty clear that they've had a 50% reduction in benefit payouts, $2 billion extra in their coffers with the changes that the Liberals brought in. And in fact, we didn't see any corresponding reduction in rates. That's just not really fair.
10, 11 months ago, whenever it happened, you and the previous Premier, Dalton McGuinty, got into some budget negotiations and you managed to convince him to bring in a tax on well-heeled Ontarians. And I wonder whether or not you have plans to have similar conversations which would result in tax increases in the upcoming budget.
No, in fact, we've been pretty clear that we've put a number of things out there. One was the auto insurance. We want to see a 5-day wait time guarantee for home care services for people. In some areas of the province, people are waiting 262 days to get their home care. That's just not acceptable. We want to see the first $200 of earnings of people on social assistance and ODSP who are engaged in work to be able to be kept in their pocket. It helps them connect with long-term employment. I mean, these are things that I think are very practical, things that can be achieved, and that's what we've asked for the Premier to consider.
Okay. In our last few minutes here, I want to just talk to you about how difficult it is to be Andrea Horwath these days. The day after the Maple Leaf Gardens convention that Kathleen Wynne won, she had a press conference, and after that press conference was over, I bumped into a teacher who had been protesting against the Liberals at the Gardens the day before. And I asked her, you know, what do you think? And she said, I voted NDP my whole life, but this Kathleen Wynne, she's good. I'm going to have to take a look at her. And my question is that the nightmare scenario for you guys if that internal thought process is happening inside the heads of a lot of New Democrats all over Ontario?
Oh, well, I don't know, you know, I don't know what the thought processes are of people, you know, in the NDP or anywhere else for that matter. But what we want to do is make sure that people understand that our job is to try to get some results for them. And that's what we're going to continue to do. I think we've been successful in doing that in the past. I think we're going to continue to be able to do that. And people are going to make their decisions. And pundits like you will be able to help them with those decisions or help them with their thought processes. For me, it's a pretty, I don't think my job has changed all all that much. I mean, I don't think it's changed at all. I got elected to try to deliver results for people in a minority parliament. I've been, you know, very, very diligent in terms of trying to accomplish that. I think we've had some very good successes, and I'm looking forward to continue that. That's what people want to see. They're tired of the political games. They're tired of, you know, of some of the conversation. There I go using that word that Kathleen likes. But you know, all of the talk. What they really want is action on some of the fundamental issues that they're facing, and that's what we're worried about.
No, I get that, but I wonder whether you feel squeezed on the one part by your desire, as you've said, to work with this new government. I shouldn't say new government, to work with this government and this new premier. And frankly, some of your allies in Labour who are saying, come on, Andrea, give them a break. Let's see what they can do. Maybe we can get some progressive legislation out of this group, because they are saying that to you. Are you squeezed between the reality of needing to or wanting to have to satisfy that, when on the other hand, they're poaching on a bit of your territory right now, this Kathleen Wynne government?
Well, I mean, and I don't look at it as my territory at all. What I look at it as is an obligation to try to get things done, and I'm going to continue on that obligation. And you know, that's why when we put these ideas forward, they didn't come up from the deep blue sea. I mean, we actually spent some time over those 5 months where the legislature was shut down to consult with Ontarians. We had thousands and thousands of responses, and people talked about the home care system. They talked about not being able to make ends meet. They talked about youth unemployment, which is the other big one that we want to see some action on in the budget. We want to see a program to help young people get their first job, their first career, including your kids and mine, right? I mean, this is a big issue right now. And we want to see some fundamental balance and fairness when it comes to the budget. And if we can achieve those things, then we'll be able to support the budget. And if those things don't get achieved, I've let the Premier know we're not going to be able to support the budget. So we went through the throne speech. We saw some interesting things there. We said we'll support that because the rubber hits the road, as I said, or the action happens in the budget, and we're looking forward to that action.
And we will keep watching. Andrea Horwath, thanks for visiting us at TVO tonight.
My pleasure as always. Thanks, Steve.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.